Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Pleb Say number 11. I appreciate everyone taking your time to come out. We have two very knowledgeable, very close friends of mine. Again, I encourage if anybody has any questions, don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask Socratic style. My name's G. I run San Antonio Bitcoin Club. And let me let them introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, I'm Austin. It's my first time at San Antonio Bitcoin Club, so I'm stoked to be here. Love what G's doing, but I work at Fold as an engineer. I do education around development, Bitcoin applications, and kind of just trying to get as involved as I can in Bitcoin and engage with people. So cool to be here.
And my name is Jana, and I'm married to this guy, so that's kind of why I just get brought around. But also, I am interested in Bitcoin, and I do Bitcoin things. But I do some Bitcoin crafty things, and I write articles. So you can check those out.
All right, so since we know who y'all are and what y'all do, really want to bring y'all by and tell y'all stories. I think your story is very powerful, and Jana just started her whole Bitcoin experience. She's a very good example of you don't need to be a coder or a developer to be in Bitcoin, because there's a lot of areas that need to be taken care of still. So, yeah, the floor is yours, man. Go ahead.
Okay, man. It's a big topic. It's a big question, but it's one of the coolest things. I love talking to people about how they got into Bitcoin, their journey, into learning about Bitcoin, their life before. And what's cool about the space is so many people have different backgrounds, I think, different perspectives. And so, yeah, I was just another one of those people that I was in the wave of 2017, the ICO wave and all the craziness and the fork wars. And I had just kind of heard about Bitcoin in a time in my life when I was ready to see what was next. Like I was very young and misdirected in life and kind of didn't have any purpose. And right after I kind of opened up my mind to like, okay, I just need to find something that's important, something I can do, something that's next. I heard about Bitcoin and just kind of got obsessed with some of the ideas. They appealed to me from like my worldview, which is even a lot different now. And yeah, just went down the rabbit hole and started learning and growing and buying a little bit of Bitcoin with my like delivery boy salary. And yeah, eventually after a few years of that, I wanted to be involved somehow. Because I was like, okay, this is so important. I'm convinced, but like, what do I do about it? Do I just keep buying Bitcoin and holding it? Like, I want to get more involved. So I started trying to do little things like being an investor, being a trader, writing articles, making YouTube videos, selling crap on eBay, like anything I could to kind of like find some vertical, some way into Bitcoin or some way to add value. And I just kind of failed again and again. And the world just gave me feedback that like, hey, you don't really have anything to offer. Like you don't have any valuable skills to offer, honestly. And I realized that, and that's when I started looking into other things and specifically coding. And so I started from zero and just kind of went down this crazy journey over the course of a few years, learning code on my own, failing, trying again, failing, picking it up again, going to boot camp, went to college, dropped out of college, and eventually kind of got enough skills to get my first job, and then spent all of my time just trying to work on Bitcoin stuff. And all of that just led me down this path to look to where most of the Bitcoiners were, like most of the developers were. And that's when I started hearing about Austin more and more. And so I followed all the Austin dudes, all the people, Unchained Capital, everything they were doing down there, and was like, okay, I got to end up there at some point. And like a year later, me and Jana, we got to move down. That was about 7 months ago. And that's kind of where things have hit the next level, where I've been getting ready for all these years kind of alone, and finally connect with the community, and then they are what helps me hit that next level. And so that's why it's one reason why I love what you're doing. Like, I think community is so important. It levels everyone else up, and it just kind of pushes everything forward. So I guess that's the quick and dirty on my story. But yeah, Jana.
Yeah. Good job. So I guess I am kind of like the example of how people that seem like they're kind of lost to all these ideas and would seem to have no interest in any of the ideas that are inside of Bitcoin can actually like find truth in it and can come to see the value in using a totally different new digital money for your whole life. I like went to college and like my whole everything that I was previously, it was just like a good student. So I was like, yeah, college is like where I'm going to become the person I'm going to become because like school is what I'm good at. But after finishing school, kind of realizing that it didn't teach me any skills and I didn't really have any direction beyond. I got pretty scared about the world, and then 2020 happened, and I was like, nobody knows what's going on, and the things that are going on are leading us to destruction very quickly. So I was like open at that point, kind of like you were saying, part of your story, the part that's important is that you became open, and like when I became open was like kind of through fear. I don't know if that happens that way for many people. I feel like when many people get scared, they kind of shut down. So it's kind of interesting. But since then, I just kind of got interested and had a lot of questions, of course. Wasn't really sure how a money that was like fully regulated by computers was going to be better than a money regulated by people. And I think that one specifically like takes time for people to like adjust to and see the value in that. And then I did, and now like I'm the person who's talking about it all the time everywhere, and people get annoyed with me. So I'm just saying, yeah, people can come around like that's why I'm like focusing now on kind of telling my perspective because I don't think a lot of people have the kind of journey that I've had to get to like where we're all interested in this like Bitcoin thing and what's going on. So I want to talk to the people who are like harder to talk to because like I think it's possible for them.
That and you're so new in your Bitcoin journey, like you can relate a lot to,
Yeah.
People that are still new to this, that aren't into this.
Right.
And yeah, just, talk on that same level that everybody else is on right now. Because, me and Austin, we started out like that too. We were curious, we went down the rabbit hole, and you start seeing all these circles that Bitcoin touches. And that's what really brings people together. You cancel out all the noise and you really focus on the signal. And the signal is, that main point that all these circles touch. And like once you're able to relate to people like that, like then they just know you're just another regular person like them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love your journey because you're so new into Bitcoin. You're still finding your place, but like you were saying earlier, you design, you do crafts. She designs shirts. Anything the Austin guys that need help with in the creative area, like you're there and giving it your 100. She's been killing it ever
It's a
since.
lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. So next, could y'all talk about the community? Like I know you were saying, Austin, how important community is, but I want you to speak just more on it. Just differences you see from being on a fiat standard of living, dollars, and now you're living on a Bitcoin standard. Like, what do you see, in the people that's so different? What kept you in Bitcoin? I may ask.
Yeah. So I really like grassroots communities, and I've always had an inclination for that type of community model. And so most of my life when I was young, that was in the form of like music and music communities. And I was super involved with music communities since I was a teenager, mainly like hardcore, punk, and metal, which are very underground, underfunded. Everyone just contributes their part. And as this ecosystem I was kind of raised in, it just had me seeing the value of like people and community and doing stuff for free, doing stuff because you're passionate about it and not caring about money. But it was a very naive, it was like fully on the naive side of that. And that's where my mindset was and my beliefs and how I saw the world. It's very naive. Um, and then Bitcoin is like the best of both worlds, I think, where there's still that same vibe of like the music community where people are open and they're doing stuff for free and they're helping out and they're cross pollinating ideas and growing together. But except we're also taking on responsibility. We're working on stuff that we feel is important. It's driven from a better place. And I think that's why you see people from like all across different cultures, different age groups, all collaborating and seeing at the same level. And so that's kind of how I see like the grassroots community. It goes right along with open source. And it's kind of just this idea that like we're all peers, we're all plebs, we're all peers, and we're trying to grow this thing up because we think it will benefit the whole. And yeah, I mean that's just generally how I see the community as a whole. But you know, something that I think about a lot and want to see more of is like how people can participate in the community and participate towards adding value. Because we're super early as far as like someone like Jana with her skill set, her interests. It's hard to find like a really direct place to apply that in Bitcoin today. The space is so small, but there's all these people with so much to offer. So it's like, how can we bring more and more vectors of society into Bitcoin? You know, we're doing this beef thing, this food intelligence thing now, and that's really cool. That's another area where we can broaden the community and connect with people from other communities. But where else can that go? Where else can that expand? And that's like the grassroots revolution, where I think eventually everyone realizes that, well, money affects me and I want better money. And so eventually it's for everyone, and everyone from the ground up, you know, wants to push for that and be a part of that community to some extent. And so, I mean, that's, you know, like that's the kind of grassroots revolution I want to see happen. Like, I imagine a future where you're walking down the street here in San Antonio or in Austin, and you're just seeing people that you know from the Bitcoin Club, the Bitcoin meetup, everywhere, and you know that you're in a community of peers. And you know that's a stronger community, and I think that's where you build up a stronger society.
I remember one time going out there, there's a room just like this, and somebody got on the mic, random person from the crowd, and they said, you know, if something were to go down today and, you know, shit were to hit the fan, they were like, I feel very confident that everyone in this room will be okay because, like you said, every vector from different vectors from different people, like different skill sets. Like we have a mechanic, we have a home builder, you know, we have developers here, we have ranchers here, people from all walks of life, and being in us all having skin in the game with Bitcoin, you know, like he was saying, we would offer our help just because you know that the other person will do the same thing for you if it was ever needed. So that's what I really do love about the community itself.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say something you said was like, the space was small, and like, I feel like that's something I've been thinking about a lot because it's like, it can be easy for me to kind of like be in these like meetups and in these spaces and kind of be like, well, first thing I can look around is be like, okay, there's me and like two other women here, or three. It's like, is this really for me? But I think that that's a negative way of seeing it. And I think like seeing it as a small space where there's like one specific set of skills that is valuable is also like a negative way of seeing it. I think a positive way of seeing it is that this is like Bitcoin is like the new frontier. And it's not a small space. There's just like so much that's undiscovered. And there's so much that's like not built yet. And there's so much room for so many people to like bring what they can do, what they're good at, and like build whatever they can on this like new money. And like I was saying this to someone the other day, like it's just to be around other people who like have Bitcoin as like the thing that we agree on. Like there's so much disagreement in the world. And then like you get a group of us people who like agreed on just one thing, like just the type of money that we want to use. And like with just that one like thing between us, we can like build the rest of like our lives off of that.
You can better your society.
Yeah.
You can better everyone's circumstances by doing that.
And like I want to build with you.
Yeah, same as well. Yeah, you meet people from all walks of life, and like I've met people from Canada, Australia, all over the world. And when we meet them, when I was living in Austin, we'd be at their lab, and they would just come in, and it was like we've known them our whole lives pretty much. And it's kind of a weird thing to say and have, but like just because we all connect with the hard money, with Bitcoin, we all understand what that is, and it allows us to erase all the noise out of the world. We don't talk about sports. We don't talk about what the Kardashians are doing, all the celebrities. It allows us just to have regular, normal conversation, no politics, none of this divisive language, this divisive stuff in the world, and there's no barriers to entry on this because Bitcoin's for everyone. So I think that's what's really kept me in, Before all this, I remember I would talk with a lot of people and they'd always look at me a little weird, conspiracy theories, all this different stuff. But finding the Bitcoin people, I'll be talking with people of quality, very successful people, very happy people, wanting to serve and help whoever they can help, whatever gifts they have. And that was what kept me in, they're more encouraging. It's like, how can I help you help me type of thing. Yeah, it's a crazy 180 once that happens. I'm happy everyone in here is here today because, this is the start of it. This isn't even 1% of San Antonio. Can you imagine if we just get 1% of the city in here? Be like a couple thousand people. And we already have a bunch of culture down here, a bunch of community. And once we're able to just knock down all those barriers and all these blockades, and walls that we've built up and society's built up between us, then you'll start seeing San Antonio flourish even more than what it already is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the people, even people that are into Bitcoin, like we lose that humility over time. That humility that like, wow, this is really unfolding. And even if Bitcoin doesn't exist, what you learn about the financial system through Bitcoin, it's like, okay, that's still happening. That's still coming down the pipe. And there's just no way to get ready for what that means. And I think that, the next wave, like right now, we're still in like the promoting and adoption wave where, partying depending on the price and the day and just trying to bring people along for the party. But, there's going to be a next phase where it's like, okay, now we're really building out, maybe out of necessity. And like, that's where we just need to be minting kind of new Bitcoiners, minting new people that are ready, they're in community, they're in alignment. And because we're going to need each other, when all's said and done. As much as like as a Bitcoiner, you want to reach that ideal of being sovereign or sovereign individual or whatever, like, that's not the path. That's a bit naive. Like, you need community, you need people. And I think now is that important phase where just like the everyday people just kind of step up and first start communicating and then start participating, and finding ways to participate and kind of building out those ways. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that.
And how he was saying about we're in the beginning stages of like promoting and getting everything out there. Same thing happened with the internet. You can go on YouTube and you can see TV hosts looking at an email, and they're like, "What's that A right there?" I remember back then when the email dropped, it was like, "What is this?" But now you see like how much the world operates online now. You don't even gotta leave your house to get groceries anymore. You can go do all your shopping, do whatever you need to do online. You can watch concerts online, do everything.
Yeah.
So same thing with Bitcoin.
And you didn't hear about email in 1991. but it was around. It was working strong, but you had to go through a very dense process, and you had to be very technical to send an email. But it was in that infancy stage. It was developing. It was growing. That's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, and like they all say right now about Bitcoin, like as long as you can, you know, us here at Samsung Bitcoin Club, we believe hands-on learning is the best type of learning, right? So if you're able to send transactions right now and receive Bitcoin payments, it's just going to get easier down the road as adoption goes. You know, we're already seeing the world already start taking all this on. Recently, the Philippines got into it, and now they were, I think, number one or two in remittances in the world.
Yeah.
And now that door is open for them. So now you can send payments to the Philippines, you know, dollar, $1.50, couple hundred, couple thousand. It's like just opening up the world. And, you know, I don't know anybody in the Philippines, but I mean, it's cool right now. I could just, you know, communicate with someone that's a Bitcoiner out there. We're able to trade value over, you know, snap of a finger, you know, over the world.
I watched a documentary like yesterday that like just got made, called A Sly Roundabout Way, and it was what Ibex made from in El Salvador, about a high school that has just like graduated its first class with a Bitcoin diploma. So they taught the kids how to like set up a wallet and then like retrieve funds from it and then like send those funds and all this stuff. And yeah, it was just like that's hands on, and that's like just like the boost that's gonna give like a kid at that age.
And then with that, when you're starting to handle hard money, what I've learned what comes with that is you start diving into Austrian economics. You know, in school they're only teaching us Keynesian economics right now, which is a debt-based society. That's what we live in. But the story I always refer to is I remember being little and I had a $10 bill and I would watch Charlotte and the Chocolate Factory. And he buys that big old candy bar with what, 50-cent piece. And I'd be looking at my $10 like, geez, like if I could go back in time and you know use this, I'd buy half that store up. But once you start learning, once you start learning about hard money, you know, you learn how to save until your money appreciates enough, and then you go buy. It's a little hard right now, just because of inflation, and we have, you know, eggs going through the roof right now. Everything's going up. Housing, if you don't own a house right now, you know, it's damn near impossible to probably get one in the future. And if you're able to take payments and save your time, your energy, your value in a money that appreciates over time. That's how it's supposed to be. Because over time, that value will go up. And you can go do whatever you want. Lessens your time frame, heightens your time frame.
Yeah. No, and I mean something like I want to say about your comment about Willy Wonka, like your childlike intuitions are like, hey, that's not fair. But then you get older and society will tell you like, oh no, well, you know, the population grows and you need to add more money because of that, and there's debt and there's all these complicated reasons why that is fair. But it's like, no, your childhood intuitions are right. That's not fair. You were robbed. And like you have to return to that truth. And that's why the Bitcoin rabbit hole is so crazy, is because this veil is pulled back from your eyes where you had this sense, at least for me, I had this sense my whole life that something was very wrong. And because of the environment I was in and the perspective I was given in life, I blamed it on capitalism. I blamed it on these ideological and political framings that were given to me. And when I learned about Bitcoin actually gave me a more sophisticated view of those problems, a more nuanced view of those problems. And it also showed me that a better way to address those. Yeah.
Just in a global perspective too, rather than just like American centric.
Exactly. Yeah, where you're forgetting about the other billions of people.
Right now we definitely live in a bubble here in the U.S. Annie Pitt, our last speaker, come last month, and I was asking her, you know, she's well traveled, been all over the world, from Australia. And one of the questions I had asked her was like, what's one thing you see that Bitcoin does for people outside of the U.S. that we might not see? And she brought up a story about like how kids in Africa get like kidnapped, and then to pay that ransom, some people have to use Bitcoin because their money gets so devalued over there because they're unbanked out there. So like that's just one of the many things that Bitcoin can fix. Um, and then also falling into the hard money, you see all these cities with a bunch of crime everywhere. El Salvador was like that. It was supposedly it was a really bad place to live, but once you incentivize the people and you get everybody some skin in the game, and these people that commit all these crimes, once they have a little bit of value, once they understand what real value is, then that necessity to take from others is essentially wiped out. If you look right now at their numbers, their crime rate it was through the roof, but it's all-time lows now. It just incentivizes you, like we were saying about the community, I'm going to help you. I need you to win because if you win, that means I win. And there's nothing wrong with that, for sure. It's just we're in a world right now where everybody wants to be number one, instead of how can we all win? How can we win together?
Yeah, or like, I want to be number one, but I don't want to do the work to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
See, yeah, and like I like how you said about that veil. It removes that veil. Uh, that's what I love about San Antonio now being plugged into Bitcoin. Is now we're seeing Texas. Texas is Bitcoin country. If y'all don't know, we have Austin. They're leading the forefront right now. Houston's real big with the energy. You have Amarillo, like Austin was saying, with the beef initiative, where they're doing a lot of food intelligence out there. And yeah, that's why we really want to get San Antonio plugged in because there's a lot of San Antonio produces a lot. We have a lot of hard workers. They're calling us right now the capital of innovation. So it's like, why not get plugged in with the best? Once you're plugged into this network, you're plugged in with a Jack Dorsey, Jack Mallers, Max Kaiser, Michael Saylor. Everybody, you see, Bitcoin draws in quality, right? So.
Yeah, and this is something that I think it's Graham's law, where there's one of these like technical laws that was viewed about networks, and it's basically the idea that the value of a network increases exponentially for each person. It doesn't just increase linearly. So if you have 10 people and then you have 20 people, it's not twice as good. It's 5 times as good. I don't know.
That Metcalfe's law is
Metcalfe's law. That's what it is. Yeah. And so like that's how I see the Bitcoin community, and you can already see that like we're so small in numbers when you think about like even like how many Bitcoin developers there are. Like there's actually probably about a few thousand Bitcoin developers in the world, like 3,000 or 4,000. But look what we've done. And look what they've done. I mean, not me. And there's all these other people. We've got this small, really, really small group of people already making such a global impact to where you have entire countries adopting Bitcoin as their currency. What we're going to be able to do on the next level up and the next level up, it's going to be unbelievable.
And like how you were saying about what developers have done, it takes me to Super Testnet. It's another builder out of Texas. So I don't know if anybody saw what was happening in Canada with the truckers. They were protesting because they weren't getting paid enough, right? So what happened was people that were supporting these truckers got labeled as domestic terrorists for giving these men money to feed their families because they got cut off from their banks. And what this guy did here in Texas was he made a protocol on Bitcoin, which kept that secret. And it kept those truckers funded to keep going. There were literally people out there handing people Bitcoin on pieces of paper or little USBs saying, hey, keep it up, make sure your family's fed. And it'd be people that these truckers had never met in their life. Did the news show that? No. But it just goes to show you, like, this thing can't be stopped. That's why you're seeing governments, want to ban it, want to get rid of it. China's already, trying to cut its head off because they like to control everything. And that's what the big threat is with those CBDCs. There was another pleb that's usually at our meetups, and he watched the whole. What was the meetup that they just had?
Oh, the Dallas.
There was a meeting in Dallas.
the World Economic Forum Davos.
So yeah, the WEF, and he sent us a screenshot of all the countries that were participating in CBDCs. And there's like 31 countries, I think, that are researching. 11 have already launched them. And yeah, like it's kind of scary to think that we live in a world where that's like normal. And to touch on that, I love how El Salvador was able to look at their current situation. They saw that the US dollar was keeping them suppressed because Mexico produces a lot. And once they found out, okay, it's these laws that they keep rewriting. You know, that's a problem with our money in our society is everything keeps getting rewritten. And how Bitcoin changes that is you can't change the code. You know, the saying goes, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. And it's real evident whenever you start talking with individuals like this, you know, everybody else here in the room. Once we all know what the rules are, then we all play by the rules, you know, the same way. There's no way of getting around them, no way of cheating the system. Do you have the value? Can you produce value? And if you can, then, you know, you're rewarded. So, Austin, I know you have a really strong mission. How you started, you know, said paper boy. Now at one point, I want to say you were a custodian. Wish I had the picture so I could spell.
Custodian? No, that's just my bathroom duty.
Okay.
You know, it's my delivery boy shift.
So, yeah, I want you to, you know, talk your mission and what you're doing now to give back to Bitcoin because it's given you so much already. So, what are the workshops you're doing, or how are you doing?
Yeah, so you mentioned Super before. He was someone who's been a good friend and a role model to me. And just randomly, like I was the person that came along and was like, hey, I'm just trying to learn. Like I need to get better at my skills. Like I just want to learn from everyone. I want to help out. And just kind of built up this reputation of being the junior who was always trying to learn. And Super Testnet and Carr from Pleb Lab, they came to me with the opportunity of us making a developer course, kind of a 0 to developer course. And so we put that together about 2 months ago now, which is crazy. It seems like longer. And for me, I've just kind of taken that and run with it and have continued to do weekly workshops and kind of build a community called Pleb Devs. And am just kind of trying to show up, building a second course now, and just kind of wanted to help define like the next generation of like Bitcoin and Lightning application builders, and invite people who think that they're not smart enough to code, or maybe they've tried and they've given up, or they think it's not for them. Just invite them and be friends with them, and show them the way. You know, if they want to go all in, or if they just want to get, you know, pick up some skills and get a little bit dangerous. But yeah, and that was very much my journey. Like I was trying to learn how to code for years. I'm not a natural. I was a high school dropout. Wasn't considered a smart person by any means. But I just kept kind of grinding at it and trying to learn. And I thought for a long time, like, I'm just like not smart enough to work on Bitcoin. I'm not smart enough. And eventually, once I got to Austin and I started to talk to people more and get a better understanding of the space, I realized that actually I'm just early. Like no one's built out the pathway. Everyone here who's building stuff right now, they're smart enough to learn the protocol and learn how to build apps, and learn how to do all this stuff. Like they were kind of already ready, but no one is defining the path of getting there from 0. And so I'm just trying to document that journey and take people along with me as I'm growing into that. So that's, I guess, kind of my thing right now. So definitely, if you're you know, a coder or you want to learn, talk to me because you're my people. But you know, all the same, like I said before, like you don't need to be a developer to add value to Bitcoin. Like there's so much more. In fact, if anything, we're doing best on developers. Like there's so much more that needs to be filled out in this space and in this culture.
I might say like we're doing best at podcasters. Like I think that market is understood.
And shit posters.
Yeah.
The memes. You mentioned lightning, and at our last meetup, Andy touched on that a little bit. Do you wanna kind of explain a little bit more on that and how lightning is such a game changer for Bitcoin? Because we're all told Bitcoin's too slow. It's a 10-minute transaction, but the whole thing about that is it's a 10-minute final settlement, and we're told that that takes too long. No one's gonna want to wait 10 minutes to make a transaction. But if you use Master or Visa card, it's a 4-day transaction, 3 to 4 day transaction. You have that window where you can disclaim or dispute, your spending, and say you can even do fraud and say, oh, I didn't spend that money the other day, and investigate, yada yada. You get your money back, or whoever's doing the fraud get their money back. Now the business loses out on their product and the money they made. So you want to explain a little bit more on Lightning as far as what it is and capabilities?
Well, I mean, it's all about trade-offs, and this is where the altcoins and the whole cryptocurrency space, this is why, we disagree with that completely and cannot support it, is because it's about trade-offs, and Bitcoin made a very specific set of trade-offs. If you're opening a restaurant, like they say, you can be fast, you can be good, you can be cheap. Now choose two, right? You can't have it all, so you have to choose two. And so when you think about that with technology, well, you're making pieces that are optimized for certain things, and then you build pieces on top of that. And that's how the internet was built. These very low level protocols that do extremely simple things. And they're like, hey, let's stick this on top of it that will take that simple thing and then let us do a little bit more with it. And this is the trajectory of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin made this trade-off on its base layer, on its basic implementation, to say, we are trading off to be decentralized, to be hard, to be auditable, all of these things. And but it's not fast, it's not the most private if you don't use it in the right way. And there's these trade-offs, there's these problems. So what are we going to do to solve these problems? Are we going to build a big, complicated machine that will fall apart in 5 years? No, we're going to layer it. And this is where Lightning comes in. Lightning is that second layer on top of Bitcoin that makes it to where you can take that Bitcoin with that simple, strong, hard rule set and then move it into a network where you're still owning it, you're still holding it, and you can transact instantly, essentially for free. And this introduces micropayments into the world for the first time. And that's why I love talking about Lightning and building Lightning applications. It's because it's just, it applies to everything. It's like, take X and add micropayments. Like micropayments, they're applicable to so many things, along with other stuff that Lightning allows you to do. So Lightning is really our solution in a lot of ways for scaling to that next class of people, to where they won't need to know what Bitcoin is and what Lightning is and what the difference is, and they won't need to know a lot of these concepts. Ideally, they'll just be able to one day download an app and receive money instantly and then send it instantly and not have to think about much under the surface. But for right now, we're early. The technology, it's a little bit clunky. Things are still clunky. People are still figuring out best practices. So we're in that phase for sure.
You see the same thing happen with Cash App. I remember PayPal was the first one to come out, and now it's kind of a thing of the past. Everybody's like, oh, you got Cash App, you got Venmo? All right, cool. Boom. Send payments just like that. We don't know what's under the hood, right? But we can still use it. It's easy. I just put a number in, send it, boom. Did you get it? All right, cool. Same thing with Lightning Network. Eventually, you're not going to have to know what's under the hood. It's just going to be a common, hey, can I send you value right now? All right, cool. How much was that? Boom. Here you go. Thing with that is, I think of Bitcoin, how we say the rules never change. That's what makes it such a hard money. It was like back in the day when people would use gold. You would take a piece of gold out, and everybody knew what gold was. The price was always the same all over the world with gold. Same thing with Bitcoin. We can look at these exchanges and we can see Bitcoin, went up a couple thousand, went down a couple thousand, right? Essentially, that's what dumps people off of Bitcoin. It just died the other day. But the rule is one Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin. Same thing with gold. 1 bar of gold is always going to be 1 bar of gold. And, that's a part of Austrian economics that comes with, diving into Bitcoin. You start learning what real value is. And that's what we're trying to do here at San Antonio Bitcoin Club. Just teach people what true value is. You know, like Austin was saying, you tried being a day trader, you tried doing all these investing, everything, but
Got
yeah,
wrecked.
but and then the thing about that is though, it's like you have people going to school for that stuff, and they still get it wrong. Now they want, you know, ordinary people like us to start reading charts, start getting 30% returns. You have to hit 30% now. It used to be 10%. But now you have to be 30 to beat out inflation, because inflation is 22% a year, I want to say. So every year that you have your money in a bank account, that $1 million that y'all have, you can look in your bank account and see that it's $1 million, but inflation is eating it up. It's like holding a bunch of ice cubes in your hand. That's what they say. You can look and see the ice cubes in your hand, but underneath, you know, it's dripping away slowly, slowly. And that's what inflation is. That's at 22%.
Yeah, and I mean this like hits home for me because you know I've realized that you to be able to effectively save nowadays, you need to be a financial expert. You need to be a financial planner, essentially, along with whatever you're doing for a job, a nurse, whatever you're doing. And you know, I've seen this play out with my parents, which is a tragedy where my mom has, you know, worked hard her whole life, had a good job, just a fine job with fine pay by all means, and has always been frugal, always saved her money. And even with that frugality and being consistent in the long term, they don't have enough money for retirement, and they're in a really tough situation. And you know, they're at the end of their life, they're going to be working until they're like 65 now. And I'm just thinking, like, if this is happening to my parents, which, you know, we're not in the worst position, you know, everyone is kind of falling into this trap at the same time. And it's, you know, it's not acceptable. Like, you need to opt out. And if you do opt out into Bitcoin and you really learn about it, and you focus your savings on it, it's a powerful thing, because you don't need to be that financial planner anymore. You don't need to think about the price. And I think that's where a lot of us have gotten to, where it's just, I just buy Bitcoin. I'm just throwing away my fiat as fast as I can. And whatever happens to the price of Bitcoin, you know, I don't worry about. I'm just worrying about keeping my job, keeping my cash flow, and focusing on my mission. And that, you know, enables people, that unlocks people in a lot of ways. And so just kind of realizing that, like, yeah, this isn't fair. This is a scam. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to sit back? And, you know, luckily I got my parents saving on Bitcoin now, but it took many years.
And yeah, it basically, you know, some people have to work their whole lives, and, you know, they're working for the weekend. I have a bunch of friends, bunch of family, you know, all they look forward to is Saturday, Sunday, Friday night. You know, that's cool and all if it works for you, but that's not how life should be. Life should be, you know, you being able to spend time with your loved ones whenever you want, being able to do whatever you want whenever you want. Granted, yeah, there's still going to be work involved, but you can't do that with, you know, when your boat has holes in it and it's slowly sinking. You can't do that because you're over here worrying about plugging up all these holes, which is inflation. If you're able to put your value, your time, your energy into this coin, and it appreciates on average. It appreciates on average 200%. You condense, yeah. If you
average out.
if you condense all the years Bitcoin's been in existence, it's 200% every year. I mean, come on. If you want to talk numbers, you know, that's way better than negative 22%. You know, on your hard-earned dollars. So yeah, and it just opens you up to, you know, doing what you truly love, and you can put your whole heart into, you know, your trade, your craft. You can go on and be great at something that you truly want to do because you're pouring your heart into it. And that's why Jana's so good at what she's doing, because she's able to take her time and, you know, to use her creativeness and just spill her soul on these canvases, and everything she's made so far. Like, she's become very well known in the Bitcoin space as a creator, and she likes to write as well. So her writings have been getting out there as well. Same with Austin.
I just wrote something about basically like this is like the topic, like Bitcoin like understanding Bitcoin and using it as money in my life was like unlocked. Even like I've always been a creative person, but now I can like be creative and not like be worrying about money.
And it falls into the saying that my mom used to tell me, just save up until you have enough and then you go buy it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell her right now, Mom, it's a little different from back when you were young, because that's what my grandma used to tell her. Now, it's like, I don't need to save. I could literally go to the bank right now, tell them, give me $30,000 loan, and I'll buy that car right now. I'll be in debt, probably like, 20%, APR. Be horrible. Could wreck myself. I got a lot of friends that do that. I'm sure y'all know a lot of people that love to get that brand new car. It's nice, yeah. But now you're handcuffed to paying that debt off. If you don't pay that off, guess what? Your car gets taken away. And falls into the saying too. To add on to that, that's the cool thing about Bitcoin as well. Do you really own your house? Do you really own your car? Do we really own anything in America? Like down the street on Moses Roses. I don't know if y'all have seen what happened with them. They're over there right by the Alamo. They're redoing that whole area. And I forgot what the name of it that they did to him, but the guy did not want to sell his property. Government basically came in, the city came in, just took it, boom. Here's some money, thanks.
Who was that? It was a bar?
Mhm.
I saw it on TV,
Yeah.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain,
Yeah.
that's what it was
That's
called,
why
yeah.
we remember the album.
But that's the cool thing about Bitcoin is like, if you learn to take full custody of it, no one can take that away from you. They can take all your money out of the bank. They can cut you off of the banks. And this thing, it's true ownership of your funds. And that's another reason why they hate it, because it breaks,
Property rights.
yeah, it's property rights in general. And that's the difference between Bitcoin and altcoins as well, is they're labeled securities because there was a company that developed these. They do have a head, CEO, so that is a head that they could cut off. And, once the top guy is in trouble, essentially the whole company shuts down. And, that cryptocurrency or altcoin or whatever, big trouble, because now nobody's going to want to build on it. Nobody's going to want to use it. Bitcoin has no head. Bitcoin has no CEO. And that's why they can't stop it as well. You can't send a cease and desist to, couple 100,000 people using it. You know what I'm saying? And I said this last time, Bitcoin is doing what money's supposed to do. We, the people, are supposed to choose what we want to use as currency, as value. We used to use seashells, marble, different rocks. And we found out that was too abundant. There was too much of it. We moved on to, metals. That was whenever the Romans came in and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, like a thought, like kind of a thought experiment I like is, I don't remember who said this, but someone had mentioned this before. Like imagine an asset, or like imagine you're investing 100 years ago, and the game is you're trying to get your money from 1923 to 2023. How do you do it? And you can go through all these classes of assets and kind of ask the question, okay, gold, well, most of the banks that the gold was stored in failed. Maybe gold buried in the backyard. Maybe that was the tried and true strategy. You got real estate taxed out of the equation over the years, or these kinds of laws can happen. You don't really know what happens in the region. Stocks, 99% of it goes to zero. Art, 99% of it goes to zero. And kind of just, and of course, fiat devalues 90-something% over that period of time. So that kind of shows you like how vulnerable our value is in the world, and how tumultuous this time has been, this time of the reign of fiat, the reign of government-controlled monies, where before on the gold standard, civilizations, they rose and they fell, and gold was there and persisted beyond all of them. And it wasn't until we put it all in a bunch of vaults with the biggest governments in the world that we got brought into the fiat standard. But Bitcoin is that asset. It is that asset where I can secure it in a way to where my children's children can claim it in 100 years or 200 years. And it's that's a crazy claim to make. Like how could you make that claim? And that's what's so crazy about the properties of Bitcoin, the encryption at the heart of it, the distributed network, how big, how powerful it is, which most people don't understand. And so like that's the real signal right there. Like Bitcoin is the hardest money. It's the next wave. It's the 0 to 1. And if you can understand that, especially now, like you're going to be at a huge advantage.